Sleepy. What
Yeah,
time
it's
is
a
it?
late morning. It's
Is it?
the first day we can chillax.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because you're kind of rushing and struggling just to get Christmas done, getting like Christmas lunches and everything. And
But right up to Boxing Day, and then yesterday was a mate of mine's birthday, which we did a party
yeah,
at my house. So yeah, it's been manic up until today.
yeah. No, my wife and I actually just spoke about it because we had the Christmas party at our house this year. Normally we go camping over Christmas, which I thought it was a really smart move because we'd go away and then have
Yeah,
none of the responsibilities or anything. It's just us five, and yeah, we'll be relaxing next to a lake somewhere. Oops, sorry, let me just get that light. But we decided this year, we need to spend it with some friends. So,
absolutely. But
so
it's
yeah, a ton of work later, it's over. It was fun. It was loads of fun, and we'll probably do it again. But yeah,
it's always worth it. It
always.
really is. It's a fantastic time of year. It's friends and family, but that's what this time of the year is. If you know, for us expats, if you've got family, you're very lucky.
Yeah,
So cherish it. Otherwise, it's your extended family, which friends become your extended family.
yeah. And if you like if you've been overseas for quite some time and you know all your family's back home and you barely see them, your friends becomes family.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, we
yeah,
sit and I mean, I've got friends here that they now my. I mean, I've still obviously got family, but they are my local family.
yeah.
And I'm blessed because my brother-in-law lives here, which sort of dictated the area we came to, and then my wife's cousin, who happens to be a good friend of mine, also followed me here.
Mm.
So there's three of us that are quite close, and then all
Yeah,
our friends and everything become extended family. Strange enough, mostly South Africans,
yeah,
as we become, we sort of
yeah.
stick together.
Uh,
There are a few others. I've got a really good friend who's Irish, and yeah, you sort of put yourself out there, so you make other friends, but they're friends. But the ones that are really family are mostly South African.
yeah. Well, Troy, thanks for that. We just got straight into it, and the viewers would still have no clue who am I talking to. So, would you please take a minute and just introduce yourself? Where do you live? What do you do for a living? Where you from?
Okay. Well, firstly, it's the first interview I've ever done, so if I ramble, just forgive me. Uh, Troy Rahme. I live in the UK in a little town called Wokingham, gorgeous little place.
Mm.
I come from South Africa, originally Orange Grove sort of area, later on closer to Fourways. Been in the UK for about 6 years. When I arrived in the UK, I really struggled because I come from a construction background, and in South Africa, we sort of learned, different ways. It wasn't all about studies. Often it was about developing as you went through jobs, and I ended up doing really well in a career
Mm.
that I had no studies in because I studied marketing and I was a registered person on the stock exchange and a few, but completely different. And I ended up being in the construction industry for 25 odd years and loved it, but came to the UK and yeah, you go from managing teams of 40, 50 people to how many bricks can you lay?
Yeah.
Um, which was, yeah, it was difficult
Mm.
and a very humbling experience. It sort of taught me a few things and retrained and decided what do I like doing, because the one thing about, and I'd imagine you're in Australia, it's
Mm.
similar there, is you've got opportunities that are slightly different. You can actually make a living uh, doing things that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Absolutely.
realize at the time, but this is what I enjoy. I enjoy people. My
Mm.
job before, the part of it I enjoyed was always the people. I
Mm.
mean, I enjoyed, seeing things and handing really good products over, but I enjoyed the people. So
Mm.
I retrained and I went into, of all things, mortgages and life insurance. And then I added to the repertoire wills, trusts, and power of attorney documents. So I advise and I broker on all of these things. And I retrained for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely loving it. I have the world's best client base. They just, the majority of my clients are South African, and
Yeah.
we have a lot of commonalities. And, you know, we come from a very similar background. So the transition is something that I can relate to and I can explain to my clients.
Yeah.
You know, prime example, whereas when I look at a mortgage, sometimes I've got 8,000 products in front of me. Whereas in South Africa, you got 5 lenders, 6 lenders, really. You know, unless you go off the beaten, you know, path and find wayward lenders. Over here, it's vastly more competitive and advisors are really needed. But that's just work. It's not really who I am. Your question is a little bit deeper. And I'll jump backwards and forwards. When I arrived, you know, from building careers in South Africa, it was all about who you knew. You know, I had a big network in South Africa, and knew a lot of people, which sort of made finding clients and building business propositions easier. You land in a new country and you know nobody. It's sort of like getting onto a bus that's full of people and you're alone. And you got to get out of your comfort zone. And for a while, I really struggled. And while I was struggling, I sat and I said, well, why am I struggling? And I realized it's because I know nobody. And how am I going to fix this? And I saw a lot of Facebook groups that supported South Africans, which were great. But at the time, most of them were just immigration and adverts.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, well, we can do better than that. And I actually started a Facebook page, which in the beginning, all I really wanted to do was 300-400 people on it. And it sort of got out of hand, which was really great. It's got over 22,000 people on it now. And although it's South Africans networking in the UK, it's really about South Africans helping South Africans. You know, it's not an in-your-face advertising classified section. So people talk. There's only one day where they can advertise, and the rest of it is talking and helping each other, and you know, emotional support, which is a big thing. And you get people who come to me, and I try to put the group behind people who do things like that. So there's everything from immigration agents to guys who make biltong and bring in spices, and guys like myself who offer services and so on and so forth. But it's really about helping each other. So you'll find somebody asking a question that they're struggling with, other people giving away something, and then you'll find, especially when we have commonalities like the Proteas or the Springboks or even South African hockey, and you know these are things that I'm passionate about, and then there's been branches off from it over time. So we've got like a motorcycle group where South Africans on motorcycles in the UK, and we'll get together. We try and support South African pubs. So we'll do rides out to pubs and whatnot, which is also fantastic. And it's just,
that sounds loads of fun. South Africa.
It's just about gorgeous people, but that's really what it is. And somebody sent me a video today. I forget who it was. In any case, it was the crux of the video was, and I think it actually strings true to today's conversation. It was a hawk that's flying over a forest, and it looks and it spots its prey. Now, we all know a hawk is, you know, it's a bird of prey, it's a powerful creature that preys on small birds and small animals, and you see the hawk diving down towards it. All of a sudden, you see the strengths of the little animals, because there's so many of them. One of them sees the hawk before the hawk comes and blasts an alarm. That alarm rings through the forest. By the time the hawk gets there, there's nothing there. That's because the friends were more powerful than the one powerful creature. And it rings true to us as a community. You know, if all we do is stick together and look after each other, we'll never be found wanting. I mean, make no mistake, in the UK, for example, there's 66 odd million people, and we're a small portion of it. But and by no means everything, but it's a soft landing for anybody who comes here. You know, I can't imagine how difficult it would have been for somebody immigrating 20, 30 years ago, where you know nobody and you can't make friends, especially at our ages. You know, if you've got young kids, you make friends through their schools, maybe. But, you know, when you come in later years, it's difficult. And social media has opened that up vastly. And you get spin-offs like WhatsApp groups and so on and so forth, which is a little bit more direct, where people are actually communicating, and they arrange lunches and they arrange dinners and pub crawls and you name it, braais. It's just fantastic to see.
Yeah. When we went over to the UK, that was 2015. We made our first friends through cell group, through church, and we had meetings at another lady's house. She was South African. Her husband Dave was British. Great people, wonderful kids, and then through them our circle grew. Mostly South African, as you pointed out earlier, because we tend to stick together. But
We do.
we connected with more and more British people, and I must whisper this next bit. I found that the British people were more forthcoming for friendships than, say, for instance, the Australians, because we've now been here almost 6 years, and we've made some friends, but mostly South Africans, and we stick together. And yeah, we're all leaving tomorrow, going camping, and we're going with another group of South Africans. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, there's I think that there's one Aussie in the mix that will join us, but other than that, it's just us. And if we don't seek out each other, yeah, there will be no community.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean we've got that commonality. We stick together. We also do things slightly different. You know, I mean, the Brits, bless them, they are a friendly bunch. You know, a lot of people say they're not. They're cold. They're not. You need to get to
Country's
know
cold.
them and understand them. They are friendly. They're just different to us. Whereas we'll invite people into our home. We'll have a braai. They don't. You
Mm,
know, I find the Brits that I'm good friends with, I've never been to their homes.
mm.
What happens is they'll sit and say, "Oh, meet me at a pub."
Yeah,
You know, so they don't invite people into their space. Whereas us as South Africans,
yeah.
we've sort of brought up that, you know, my house is your house.
I think
Yeah,
that might be a common British mentality, because the houses are so small, and the pubs the pubs are packed every night, everywhere. It's crazy.
yeah,
My wife and I did a London outing one evening just to go do pub crawling. I was just so flabbergasted of how crowded every single pub was. I mean, those
oh,
pubs
they get
must be
crazy.
making a fortune.
Come on. Sorry, we've got a visitor now. Come,
Oh, there
get it.
you go.
Was feeling
Oh,
lonely.
any,
Come here.
everybody loves dogs. Yeah, I know Wokingham a little bit. I lived in Aldershot, right? So that's about
That's down the road.
15 minutes from Wokingham. And then I worked in Guildford, a beautiful little town, like you probably know. And I remember in the mall in Woking, so did you say Wokingham or Woking?
Wokingham.
Wokingham,
So
huh?
yeah, the
Yeah,
smaller
because
one.
it
Woking is about half an hour from me.
right,
From
yeah,
Aldershot, the opposite direction as Woking.
that's right. But one of the two had a mall, and inside this mall is a little, I almost want to say an alleyway, or a gap with a sort of pergola overhead or whatever. But there's a little South African stall there, and the guy
Ah,
made.
that's Woking. Yeah,
All right, yeah. It's funny how a lot of their towns have similar names, just a slightly different ending. Now, I see in your profile picture you actually posting there with a motorbike. So
yeah.
I take it you are quite into your bikes.
Well, it's interesting. In South Africa, I'd never ridden a bike in my life. Maybe once, and I think I fell off. As a kid. Um, it's yeah. I had different hobbies. You know, South Africa, you've got different. There's different opportunities. I did a lot of 4x4ing, camping, that sort of thing.
Mm,
And then we had a boat that we kept at the Vaal, and we used to go down and do boating.
mm.
Um, Over here, and let's be honest, England's gorgeous, and it does have gorgeous summers, but it's very hard to gauge. So boating is really a rich man's hobby, because you got to have the boat, moor the boat, store the boat, and use it 1 week a year.
That's
So
right.
that wasn't going to happen. So I tried, and then I went. I thought, you know, when I first got here, going a little bit crazy, I'll try my hand at 4x4ing.
Mm,
I went once.
yeah.
It was a lot of fun, but it took me 2 weeks to get the mud off the vehicle. And I said, you know, I'm not doing that again. You can't rock up at the car wash. Yeah, they're going to look at you and think you're bloody mad and want to charge you £200 to clean.
Yeah.
So no. So I never did that again. I did have fun. And then, yeah, like I said, I struggled for a while, and then COVID hit. And then I struggled a bit more. And
Yeah.
at that stage, I was starting a new career, and I just finished studying and all sorts of things.
Mm.
And I just had to find something to do. It was actually my wife's idea, because she could see I was struggling with this cabin fever. Go get a bike license and get a bike. And
Oh, wow.
so, yeah, in actual fact, I started the bike Facebook
Did,
group. I
did you
had a
take out,
learner plate.
did you take
No,
out your
it
life?
was hilarious.
Did you take
I
out,
was taking people out on rides on my learner plate.
did you take out your life insurance at the same time? I'd look into that.
No, I had it before. I added more life insurance when eventually I bought a house, and they loaded me because I ride bikes now.
Yeah, no, I would leave that part out if I was you. No,
Oh,
let's explore that whole point of view a bit about the recreational stuff in the UK, and I'm going to compare it with what I know here now in Australia. Now, I had a go at some of it because I used to love fishing and things like that in South Africa,
yeah.
right? And oh gosh, we did it like every second weekend, and if my wife would have would have let me, I would have gone all the time. Not that she really cared, but we had a little baby at that time, and obviously I need to be present. So in the
Yeah.
UK, I remember we had our week of summer, and we went to Portsmouth normally and stayed there in the motel or whatever, and then we would drive through to what's the beach there, half an hour away, not Newquay, that's the opposite direction, West Wittering, and we would
Oh,
go
yeah.
hang out.
Is a gorgeous.
Oh, it's
You can
gorgeous.
even brine on that beach, which is lovely.
Yeah, on your little portable, your Tesco
Yeah.
unit. And I bought a fishing rod to try it out on Portsmouth because I saw this someone standing there fishing. It wasn't in. I think I got one bite. I don't even know what it was,
Uh,
but it
it's
was.
not like South Africa.
No, it's not. And then I came to Australia, and obviously I told my wife, listen, yeah, I'm going to be doing everything that I've missed in the UK. So I got my fishing rod, and pretty much from the start just had loads of fun with that. That later then escalated to a kayak, and then I bought a boat, like a little dinghy, tinny, they call them here, which
Yeah.
I sold again because it's hard work getting that thing in and out of water when you're alone. I now have a Hobie Pro Angler parked over there, which I love
That's a
that.
nice story.
I love that thing to bits. But we're spoiled for choice, really, and
Mhm.
and also with the camping. Now I know people do camp in the UK, but I've
Oh,
always
yeah.
it looks hard. It looks wet.
I've been camping a few times,
Yeah.
but it's not the same as camping in the bush.
Yeah.
Over here, you go camping, it's very structured.
Mm.
It's not the same as South Africa and I'd imagine Australia. Because in South Africa, I used to go to dried up riverbeds and camp in that.
Yeah.
You can't do that here. Over here, there's campsites that you pay and you go to, but it's very organized, and there's no bush camping.
Now that's what we're gonna go
Um,
do this for the next week. We're gonna be gone. We're gonna be
oh,
at a site, something very civilized for the kids. A little bit of wild going on there, and then for a couple of days after that, we're going into the wilderness where there's no reception.
but
Yeah,
that's what you want. You want the solar panels to run your fridge,
yeah, that's all. Yeah.
and
You go.
that's it.
I'll flip the camera. I'm actually sitting outside. The caravan's over there, or the
Oh, there you go. You
uh,
sorted.
well,
You
yeah.
sorted.
We're still busy packing, really. I'm squeezing in this interview because I really want to wrap up the year with a nice UK chat. And I thought, who else better than Troy? Because we've talked a few times on Facebook, and
Yeah.
you look like a fun guy, and it turns out I'm right.
You got to have fun. But I used to fish in South Africa. Well, I was never a good fisherman. So
No
I'll
one
stop there.
is.
I used to try my hand at fishing. I used to go out.
Yeah,
I had one really fantastic day, which sort of
yeah,
where I caught a load of fish, and it was fantastic. And
yeah.
then thereafter, I think I caught one fish each time I went out, if I was
I
lucky.
know.
And then I came here and I had loads of fishing equipment, and I went to a fishing pond over here, and it just wasn't the same. Firstly, all my hooks were illegal because they're not allowed the barbs. You're not allowed to eat what you catch unless you fish in the sea. So
Yeah,
it was, and then it's so easy because they got all these fishing ponds
yeah,
that the fish breed in. It's like going to a trout farm.
yeah.
You know, it's
It's
fish
hard.
catch release, fish catch release. For me, fishing was you put a line in, or if you're in the sea, we would go out on a boat and go fishing, try catch a dorado or something. You take it home and you make a braai on the beach. That's what fishing was.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, have a couple of whiskeys while you're doing it. It was, you know, very social, very,
It's
you
part of the
know,
recipe. It's part of the recipe.
yeah. Whereas over here, it's very much a catch and release, solitary thing. So you
And
find a
that's
lot of
all
people
that,
around these big lakes.
let me tell you something interesting. So that's carp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's carp here as well. But if they catch you throwing it back, you get fined. You're not allowed to
That's
throw it.
hilarious.
You need to bury it or kill it or bury it because it's an invasive species. That and the redfin, which and I've caught a carp about 4 weeks ago, and I was so surprised because the first one ever I caught in Australia. I'm like, oh well, and this was a really big one as well, so I had to like chuck it into the bushes, and I had to explain to my little girl now the carp didn't make it, but
Oh,
yeah, but it's quite funny. Where in the UK they sort of revere the fish. But
yeah.
they don't even taste good. So yeah,
No, they're terrible. Because
yeah,
carp's not nice eating, but it's very different. I mean, listen, it's when you understand why they do it. Like my
yeah.
nets, for example, I couldn't use my net. I had to buy a new net because my net could hurt the fish.
Oh, shame.
You know, it makes sense. You had to get landing mats, and you had to get, so it's a whole big rigmarole. And I sat and eventually I gave all my fishing stuff away. So you know, I need something new. This is just too much PT for me
Do
to
you
go
know that
out and
little?
spend a couple of hours fishing.
Do you know that little lake between Ash and Guildford? It's like a little road that you because I can see there's like little tent spots all around this lake, and I can see the guys camping there in their tents for the night, and that's what they do the whole night is fishing. Most likely.
Yeah,
Have you ever spotted some of those sites as well?
I've I've seen. There's one up the road from me. It's a massive lake. It's gorgeous. It's called Dinton, and you
Mm.
go around and it's about a 4 mile or 3 mile track around
Wow,
it,
that's quite
and
big. Yeah.
it's lovely. You take your mountain bike, you ride there, you can picnic there and whatnot. And then there's all these little pathways that lead down to little sections for fishing. And you see loads of people go and they pitch their little. It's not so much a tent. I don't know what they call it, but it's sort of like a shade that you sit and you fish. I
Yeah.
don't know if they stay overnight.
Yeah.
Um,
It looked like it, and I thought, well, okay, maybe that
it's
looks like something fun to
possible.
do. And I thought about it for quite a bit, maybe taking my son out and just parking there next to the lake. But then I realized we're catching carp. No,
Yeah,
if it was like a
you know,
trout and you trout or you're allowed to keep it, then maybe. But because I do love a good smoked trout, but yeah, otherwise,
Trout, lovely. Carp's not great.
mm,
And the thing is, I've got a mate of mine that goes to the sea to go fishing. And he takes his kids, which is lovely.
yeah,
But they go off the pier and they'll
yeah,
spend a few hours fish. If they catch, they take it home. But it's it's not the same fish as South Africa. So it never caught me. You know, for me, I want a rock cod, or I want to go out. I want to get a dorado, or you
yeah.
know.
Oh, we've got what are we snapper. So I caught a couple of snapper lately. I caught them
Oh, that's a nice fish.
55 centimeter Australian salmon the other day. That thing just put up such a
Mm.
fight. But oh, when I got the thing into the kayak, I was buzzing. I'll put in a pic so the viewers can see it.
Yeah.
Um, that's a great topic. I might just do a whole series regarding recreational stuff like camping and fishing. Um,
Oh, absolutely, but motorbiking. I promise you now, it's the best thing to hit the UK. You see, when summer hits, there's
yeah.
more bikes out than there are cars. This place comes alive with motorcycles.
I know the bike, the not motorbiking, but the actual cycling is also quite big in the UK because I've
Oh,
watched
it's
some
massive.
series
Yeah.
on it on YouTube, and it looked so much fun. They would like cycle like an immense distance just to, and they do it in sort of in groups, which makes it also very social.
We
And
yeah we have a social group for that actually. So we call it well, it's being very interesting. It's just called the cycling group. It's a WhatsApp group.
yeah,
It's mostly British guys, and there's a few of us South Africans.
yeah,
Um, and we will cycle through summer, like
yeah,
once a week or something, do a little bit of a trip, like 10 miles or 15 miles or something, and
yeah.
they try to build it up. And then once a year, we'll do a 3-day weekend and see who can make it. And there's usually about 15 of us.
Yeah.
And it'll be like a 60, 70 mile ride out.
Nice.
And then we'll spend a few days and ride around the area. So every time it's a different location. So I've done that 3 times.
Is it a public group, or is it enclosed to people that want to join?
No, it's enclosed.
Yeah.
It's not actually my group. This one I was invited into.
Oh, right.
It's mostly Brits. Lovely guys. It becomes a good party, a good piss up, as you would imagine when it's mostly Brit. And
Like
yeah, I mean,
little,
I've done it 3 times, twice
yeah.
on my bicycle, and the last time I was away, and I came back on the second day, so I just met them out on my motorbike,
Oh,
and
that's
then I
cheating.
teed.
That's cheating. You should have pedaled like the rest of them. Just suffer all the way
Well,
through.
I did. I went past them like this and laughed at them.
That's funny. Yeah. Troy, sorry, I'm gonna do as an enclosed topic, and I really enjoy this chat. I think we need to do it again, definitely. And I'm gonna be linking your Facebook page, your group in the description, so other
Oh,
South Africans in the UK that really wants to connect can sign in. Um, I wanted to touch base a little bit on the work because you said a few interesting things which I felt carried a lot of weight. Is about the UK offering so many opportunities, because that's what I found. Now, I was a business owner in South Africa, not by choice, but I couldn't really get a job because
like my,
I
yeah,
was I was I was
it's
qua-
common.
I was more than qualified and experienced. But the thing is, yeah, you know. Anyway, so I was forced to work for myself, and it turned out I did really well. I had a big clientele. I did website design, and app development and things like that for companies, and I sold the business back in 2015, and thanks to those funds, me and my wife could move to the UK. But and then something that you really said resonated with me was from managing 40, 50 people now laying bricks, and that's what I found. It's like I had to start at the bottom, and
Mm,
I want to really tell you this story because I think it was quite funny because I was trying to start a new web design business. And my father-in-law saw, nah, it's just not happening. I got like 1 or 2 clients, small jobs. And then he says, now you need to take your CV, go to the car dealerships and the shops and go find a job. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I had staff in South Africa.
mm.
Now I'm a nobody. But I thought to myself, hey, look, even if I'm begging on the streets, I'm still earning pounds. It's the UK. So I took my CV, I borrowed my father-in-law's jacket to sort of look okay. And I remember rocking up at the Vauxhall at the dealership and giving him my CV and sitting there with the sales manager. And he looking at me, he's like, do you really want this job? And I looked at him, I was like, not really, no. Because I just couldn't. I hate cars. I love the car that I drive, but I don't like working on them because I don't understand them
Yeah.
like I do computers. But I ended up giving my CV in at O2. And they needed a technician, which was also then a manager. And they hired me on the spot because the manager there, he was Portuguese. He really took a liking. I mean, we just got along so well. And but through that, I managed to start off at the bottom, and then get through that. I got into education, and today I work in IT for school year, as I did in Guildford.
Mm,
But it's the thing that you said there about you just lay your bricks and you enjoy the work. That's something that it 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 dawned on me while I was actually doing that laboring. I loved it. I loved
mm.
not having that stress constantly weighing me down of, oh, I need to provide for my family, or my kid are gonna go hungry,
Yeah.
and my wife is gonna think less of me. It really felt good to know that, I'm working for boss. I'm doing great work. I'm getting my salary. And I
Getting
think
leave.
and you mentioned it's a humbling experience. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Mm. It really is. And the thing is, you can look at, I'll use a good friend of mine as an example, South African bloke. He's come here, he his eldest was the equivalent of A level. So he came from South African school straight into A levels. And he struggled, obviously, because it's very different. It's vastly different. So he went the trade route, and he ended up becoming a plasterer. Now, as a plasterer in South Africa, as in physically doing the work, you're not going to make a good living. You're going to struggle to keep a family going. Whereas over here, he's now married. He had his wedding in Italy that he paid for as his son. He's now living just outside of London. You know, he's still a plasterer. He earns a decent wage, and he loves it.
Yeah.
You know, he loves what he does. He's got social media pages and all sorts of things. Whereas had he done the same vocation in South Africa, he would have really struggled.
Yeah, totally
You
agree.
know? And over here, you sit and you look. I talk to everybody. I talk a lot, and
That's great.
I go down to the Morrisons, which is like a spa, and they've got a few South Africans that work there. And there's a South African lady who's a teller, and I was talking to her, and I mean, as a teller, she's a homeowner. Now think about that in South African terms. If you were a teller at Spa, would you buy a house?
Absolutely. No, I mean, but absolutely on what you said previously. Yeah.
I mean, she maybe didn't manage to get a great job, but she's okay. She gets a wage every week or month, or however she earns, and she can live on it. She's not going to get rich as a teller. Don't get me wrong. She's not going to be like an entrepreneur who earns £1 million a year.
Yeah.
But she'll go home, relax, have a Bailey's coffee, same as you and me and that millionaire, and she'll have a roof over her head, which is something which was a risk, a stress you had in South Africa that you couldn't have. Whereas if you didn't have a good vocation in South Africa, to actually bring up a family was difficult.
Yeah, and I think there's a thread you can pull there, and an area to explore. South Africa, I would say the history of South Africa sort of downgraded those roles from the beginning, and and like even things like plastering, bricklaying was all cheap labor, and you can get it on every corner at every 7-Eleven. You can pick up some cheap labors, good plasterers, good bricklayers, good tilers. They're all there, and they're working for the lowest wage, and that's why that trade will never be big enough for someone to actually buy a home, or unless he owns the company. You know,
exactly. That changes it. But then he's an entrepreneur. He's not necessarily a bricklayer. You know, but once it's a big changeover, you know. But when you're sitting and you look here, and let's say you're earning £20 an hour as a skilled labourer, so as a bricklayer or a plasterer or a handyman, that's generally what they're on, roughly £20 an hour. And you work out on an 8-hour day because you're not going to get paid for lunch here. So that's £160 a day. Now you throw that into rand terms, and this is as a skilled labourer. So this is the guys that are standing outside of Builder's Warehouse. That's £160. What's it, times 23 odd? Call it times 20. Keep it simple. 3,200 rand a day.
Yeah.
You know, that's
mind blowing.
It's not a tuppence. You know, it's not a tuppence. So it's vastly different to South Africa from that aspect. And the other thing that you find is things that are different. Like, I've met people that are extremely wealthy. In actual fact, in South Africa, I never once met a mayor or anything over here. Within the first year, I'd met the mayor of Wokingham twice, you know, just by being a Rotarian. I'm no longer a Rotarian because I just ran out of time. There's too many things happening. But for the first 4 years here, I was an active Rotarian. And through that, I met some very wealthy people. And something that stood out is in you know, from my friends in South Africa, people they have nice lavish cars and beautiful houses. Some of the wealthiest people I knew had nice grounds, but really old houses, and a car that was paid for 15 years ago that they're still driving today. Meantime, they're worth £10 million.
Yeah. Well, that's,
you know, they don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Nothing. No.
And most importantly, they never looked down on me at the time I was working as a handyman.
No.
Never once did they look down on me.
No, and it's the
You
same thing
know?
for people that's cleaning streets and stuff in London. It's an honest
Exactly.
job. The bus drivers, no one is looking down on any one of them. I don't
Absolutely.
think there was any job that I could see that people were sneering upon. Every role had a line of respect that people would give
Mm.
it. I think the only time when I notice a slight little sort of people that sort of look down on what other people were doing is when those people were from other countries, like for instance South Africa. Yeah,
Well, yeah, harsh to say, but yes, we do. We have it ingrained in us because that's how we were brought up. You've got two routes: either study and go into a professional career, be it a lawyer or an accountant or an engineer or something, or become an entrepreneur and open a business.
yeah,
For us, the lesser roles as we were brought up, you couldn't keep a family, whereas over here you can, which opens up a different aspect of life, a less stressful, which I think when you look around you, people aren't so stressed. In South Africa, we were very stressed. Over here, guys are less stressed.
yeah.
You know, the stress levels are way down because apart from the fact that, you know, your employment rates and the unemployment rate is very low, but the people who are doing, you know, the postman, for example, yesterday I had a 20-minute conversation with my postman. I've never once looked down on him. He's a lovely bloke. We bought him a Christmas present. He gave us a card.
Yeah.
You know, you don't look down on anybody. He goes home with a decent wage, looks after a family. He has a great job. He works from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, and
He
he
owns a
loves it.
house.
He owns a house, and he loves it. He absolutely loves it, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And if anything, all you see is respect for him. People greet him, they talk to him, they're nice to him. You know, in South Africa, I never once knew my postman. I wouldn't know if they came once or twice, you know, or I had a regular person. I never knew them.
Yeah.
You know, which in a way is wrong of me because I never took the time to.
Mm.
But it was also how we were brought up with this hierarchy.
Mm.
Whereas, yes, I'm sure there is a hierarchy over here, but it's not so evident.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
people more accept.
I think the middle class in the UK is so big that
Mm.
you sort of you're protected from your hierarchy, your really
Mm.
wealthy people and people that actually make the big decisions and all of that.
Absolutely. And when you meet them, they're just like you and me, but they're lovely. They are really, really lovely people. I mean, I'm obviously not going to mention names, but I've become really good friends with some of them, and some of them are extremely wealthy, and I'm talking loads of zeros at the end of their accounts.
Yeah, but
And
down to earth.
they're down to earth. They're like you and me. They're friends. You go out, you can joke with them. You you know the type of friend that you can prank
Yeah,
and you know and so on and so forth. It's just it's so nice to see.
yeah. Troy, thank you so much. That's another topic that I really want to get into is your different kind of people in different countries and how to connect with those people. And there's just another topic over there. I mean,
Yeah,
as a South African expat, all those sort of things for me personally is important because that teaches me how to connect with people all over the world. Um, again, thank you so much for your time. And
oh, it's an absolute pleasure.
I feel like this ain't over. We should definitely do this again.
Oh,
Um,
we can.
yeah. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And yeah, and thank you for setting the time aside to be my last interview for 2023.